Hello, this is a simple video on how to inverse, which is the process of measuring the distance and bearing between 2 points or a point and an object in LandStar. I've imported into a job 8 points that form the corners and quarters of a section, and I'd like to know the distance and bearing between these calculated points. So there's several ways to do that. The most common is to go back to Tools and then to Inverse and put in the points that you'd like to inverse. So I'm going to go from 1 to 7 and 5283, 80.058 chains. You can do a traversing inverse. So if we want to go from 7 till 5, I can click the up arrow on the right hand side over here, which will move 7 to the top box, and then I can put 5 in the second and get 78.01. This would be the north line of that section. This is probably the most common way that we think about doing an inverse, but there's lots of other ways. Probably the simplest way is just to go to the point list, and once you get here, you can go in, customize the display, ask it to display the distance and bearing. I'm going to click on this distance line here, and I'll change the order. And now my list has got the northing, easting, and then the distance and bearing between the subsequent points in the list. If the points are entered backwards, I can just come up here and click on Sort First to Top and reverse the order in the point list. Another way to do inverses is to go into the CAD view and then click on Measure and Inverse. So if I click on 1 to 7, you see that's 5283. If I click on OK, I'll get the distance and bearing again. I can also come in and do a multi-inverse. So that's Measure, Multi-Inverse, and then I'm going to click on the 4 corners, click on OK, and I actually get a list with the distances and bearing for each of the legs of that section. It's also possible to turn the section into a polyline, a closed polyline. So I'm going to click on Draw and then Polyline, and I'm going to click around the section again, and I'll close it with the Close button, and click OK. I can add the area and the 2D perimeter to the inside of this polygon, but I'm also going to display the line dimensions. And you'll see here now I have dimensions for all of the exterior lines of this section annotated on the drawing, which is pretty handy. Some other measurements that you might want to make is what's the distance between the line, let's take the east line of the section, and this calculated theoretical east quarter, point number 8. Well, the traditional way to do this would be to go to Tools and then point to Line Distance and enter in 0.1 to 7. So it's already in here. And then 8, the difference, we hit Calculate, and we get 13.46 feet. Now that is the perpendicular distance from the line to the point. I can add it by clicking Save here to the point list, or I can stake it out directly, which is probably what I would do because I don't want to have a theoretical point. In my point list for the line intersection, if I'm going to go and look for this point, so you could click Stake Out and it'll take you right there. There's another way to do that. It's perhaps more intuitive. If I go to the CAD screen, I'm going to zoom way in here. You can see there's that offset difference I'm interested in right there. I can click Measure, and then I can click on Inverse, and I'll click on point number 8. And then I want to pick, and first I'm going to pick the midpoint of the line. If I click and hold on the Snap tool, I'm going to turn midpoint on and perpendicular off. And now if I click on the line here, that'll give me the distance from the point to the midpoint of the line, 13.46. That may not be what I'm interested in, so I'll turn off the midpoint and go to the perpendicular. And now I can There we go. Pick the perpendicular on the line, and 13.46 is the same distance, but it's a different point. Of course, if I click on OK down here, there's the calculated point. So those are several ways to calculate inverses in LandStar. Thanks very much. I'll see you in the next video.